Hi guys. So today's video is going to be a list of books that look really intimidating, have a lot of pages, but honestly are really fast paced. For these books, I'm going to start with the ones that have the highest page counts, and those are in the 600s, a couple of them close to 7, and then we're gradually going to work our way down to some books that are in the 400s. Of course, what you consider to be a big book might differ from what I consider to be a big book or what most people might consider. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, I thought she was going to talk about books that were fast-paced that are over 1,000 pages, I'm not. Also, just as a heads up, different editions might actually be slightly different with their page counts. The page count that I'm going to list is going to be what's listed on Goodreads. So starting off that list would be Warbreaker at 688 pages. Out of all of Sanderson's Cosmere books, I still always say that this one is the most fun. It's just a good time. It follows these two sisters. One is pledged to be married to this other kingdom to fulfill a marriage alliance, and the other is happy-go-lucky and has no political obligations, and then last minute their roles get reversed, and now the daughters, who have never ever filled the roles of the other, now have to fulfill those roles. Something that I personally found made this plot progress so quickly is that there is a sense of mystery to it. It's not a murder mystery, but almost that kind of a vibe. You are very much wondering what's going on. Plus, it's a very contained story, something that a lot of times in fantasy books that can slow the pace down a little bit is that the worlds are huge and that there's so many different cultures, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of time that often needs to be spent on those things, and with this book, we are primarily in this new kingdom that the one sister is being married off to, and so while she's experiencing a new place and a new culture, it's only the one place, so you don't have to worry about tons and tons of world building. You primarily are focused on the characters and a tiny bit of romance, and also what the heck's happening. The next book on the list I don't actually own a copy of, but it is definitely incredibly fast-paced. It's 629 pages, and that would be Black Prism by Brent Weeks. While there is complexity with the magic system, most people think that discovering the details about the magic and how it plays into the world building, most people find that element to be really fun and really fascinating. But besides that, nothing really about Black Prism is complex. The writing style isn't dense whatsoever. It's very straightforward, and I think the beginning of the book is definitely something that is going to be intriguing because one of our characters, when you first meet them, their village is starting to be attacked, and so you are following this character as they are trying to escape, and it's like watching the beginning of a movie when you don't exactly know what's going on, but you're immediately pulled in, and it's intense and it's enticing, and it makes you want to know what happens next. The next book coming in at 513 pages would be another Sanderson book, and that would be Skyward. This is a young adult book that is not part of Sanderson's Cosmere, so that already makes it a little bit less daunting because you're not feeling like it's a part of something way bigger, but it is so incredibly fast-paced. I was surprised at how often I would get to a spot and think, okay, once I get to the end of this chapter, I'm gonna go to bed. And then I get to the end of that chapter and think, I gotta keep reading. This is a science fiction book that follows our main character named Spencer. Her and some of humanity are trying to survive on this planet that is constantly being attacked by aliens, and they don't really know how they ended up there. They don't know what the aliens want or why the aliens won't leave them alone, but the only way that they can fight back is in the sky. And so Spencer has dreams of being a pilot. These dreams are definitely dampened by the fact that her father was a famous pilot who famously abandoned his crew. And so her chances of getting in are not the easiest, but she is a fighter, she is a go-getter, and she is doing everything she can to attain this dream. From the very beginning, Spencer is a character that is just doing everything she can, and even if you don't like her personality necessarily, you kind of still want to root for her, and you start to see her character grow and her character mature as the story progresses. You see her start to recognize her faults and want to be better, and not just want to be better as a person, but be better in every way she possibly can be and to help others. And it's a really fantastic character arc, and in the middle of an extremely fast-paced story. The amount of action in this book is so good, and it's so easy to visualize. I didn't think I'd be able to visualize these fights with these awesome planes, ships, whatever you want to call them. I didn't think I'd be able to visualize them as well as I did, but I could visualize everything, and not just with her, but with all the rest of the people that she is fighting alongside, and then her enemies. Everything was so well done. Next two books on these lists would be Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which is at 435 pages, and its sequel I went ahead and included, which is 504 pages. The setup for these books is it's a futuristic version of our own world where everything that has threatened mankind has been eliminated. There are no threats, there's no war, there's no disease, there's nothing except the threat of overpopulation. And to try and remedy this threat, mankind has decided that there will be a revered group of individuals known as Scythes who will go around and kill people. It's a super interesting premise. It's a bit morbid, which I kind of enjoy. And when I first heard about it, I was thinking, okay, it sounds so unique and different and cool, and it's getting a lot of praise. I had seen so many people say great things about these books, so I was nervous that the hype would get to me and that I wasn't gonna like them as much. But these were such an exception to that. I liked these more than I was expecting to. At the beginning of every chapter in the first book, you get a journal entry from a Scythe, the people that go around and kill other individuals. And from page 1, reading the journal entry of one of the Scythes, I was hooked. What I appreciate too is that these books in no way, shape, or form come across as pretentious, which is something that if I even catch a whiff of, I instantly am not really drawn to those books. But these had so much potential to be pretentious because of the nature of the story. There's so many questions about what it means to truly live and how aging changes us, and all these sorts of questions arise. And it was done in a way where you didn't feel like you were being talked down to. You just felt like the questions were being presented, the characters thought about them, society thinks about it, but you're not told how you're supposed to think about it. And I loved that, and I loved that these questions were brought up while using a very easy writing style to make sure that the light shone on those questions rather than on, look at how amazing of a writer I am. And I think there is something to that. I think it makes the story easier to get into, and I also think that Neil Shusterman maybe tiny bit plays around with the smallest hint of absurdism. They're awesome. The last book on this list, which is going to have a sequel come out, would be Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. This book is 432 pages, and its sequel, Lady Smoke, is 512. I obviously can't comment on the sequel because at the time of filming, it's not out yet, but this first book, it's trope city. It has so many tropes. It follows our main character, who is the last person in her royal line left alive. These enemies came and conquered her kingdom, kept her alive so that they could publicly torture her if her people try to rebel, or if there's any hint of rebellion, they harm her publicly. And it's very, very sad for her. She has no hope for the longest time, and then we get a spark of hope at the beginning, and she decides, you know what? I'm gonna do something. I'm going to try and free myself, and then in doing so, I'm gonna try to do what I can to help my people. The reason I say that this book is trope city is because we've seen the heir to a throne that was conquered and she's trying to get her throne back. We've seen that story before. There's also a little bit of a love triangle in the story. We've seen that before, but tropes are not inherently bad. They're just things that are familiar to us. And while this book doesn't necessarily introduce really new concepts or really awesome, interesting magic that's never been done before, even though it doesn't have that, it was still a heck of an entertaining book. Out of all of the books that I read in 2018, this book I read faster than any other book. I pretty much didn't want to put it down. I read it in one 24-hour time period. I think I just stayed up late and finished it, and I haven't had a book have that effect in a long time. That honestly, I finished the same day that I started. I really enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of tropes, but you know what? I liked the tropes, and I thought that they were fun, and I thought this was a good book. Darn it. Anyway, that's it for some big books that read fast. Let me know what books you think look really intimidating, look really daunting, but actually are super fast-paced. As always, thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.